In case you don't know, the back three system has made a decent comeback to Football Manager, especially last year. And with the right group of players, you can dominate a lot of teams and stay solid at the back. In this video, we'll look at one of the highest ranking back three systems in Football Manager 2024, and we'll kind of look at why it works and why it's so successful. And later on, I'll show you the current back three system that I'm using with Atletico Madrid that is somewhat attacking and also very solid at the back, and it uses less player instructions and team instructions. So currently the best back three system on Football Manager 2024 that I've seen so far is a narrow meta 3-4-2-1 system. Now the idea behind the system is that it has 3 ball playing defenders and I think complete wing backs as well, or complete wing back on one side, and of course 2 defensive midfielders, and they have different roles to be honest, and it also has 2 wide players of this sort, and one other player here is going to act like the wide playmaker. This system sort of incorporates most of what you see in the Miracle 1 tactic. If you've had the Miracle 1 tactic, you know that's a 4-2-3-1 system, but imagine the Miracle 1 tactic playing in the back three system. That's kind of how this narrow meta actually works. We're going to look at all the player roles now. So this is the system, and it's the version 37 of the narrow meta 3-4-2-1 system. The reason why it works so well, because if you recall, the Miracle 1 tactic had a particular principle that the ball playing defenders had the ability to dribble a lot more, and you see that in this system where the ball playing defenders, one on the left and one on the right, they all have the dribble more instruction, the tackle harder instruction, even the ball playing defender on the center. So having all 3 ball playing defenders have that dribble more and tackle harder instruction sort of takes the Miracle 1 tactic principles to the next level, allowing the players a lot more freedom and very difficult for the AI to actually mark them when you have 3 ball playing defenders moving around like that. The central or the goalkeeper in this case is the sweeper keeper on defend. He's also tackling harder. That is also a similar element from what you see in the Miracle 1 tactic. And like I mentioned, this case, it wasn't complete wing backs. I was wrong about that. It's wing backs on attack duty on both sides, but in this case they're actually staying wider and tackling harder. And then instead of defensive midfielders, the 2 segundo volantes, each of them are playing on attack duty, and they have the same instructions as well. So that's kind of what makes this tactic very difficult for the AI to defend against. Now I need to warn you, I'm using a very good team here, and I recommend that in this system you will want to have a solid team in order to actually execute this tactic. But if you're in the lower leagues and you're slightly better than most of the other teams that you're playing against, you can run away with it as well and then have good results playing in this system. You notice another principle here is that the inside forwards on the left and on the right both have that mark specific position instructions, just like the Miracle 1 tactic. And of course the advanced forward, he's only been asked to tackle harder this time, and that is how you sort of replicate that system that I see a lot in most meta tactics. It's sort of incorporated into this system, and they have a back 3 as well. Now if you look at the team instructions, the mentality is set to attacking as well, but if you look at the in possession phase, most of the tactics that you see, it's a very narrow system as well, shorter passing with higher tempo, exploiting both sides, very similar to what you see in most meta tactics. And in the transition phase, it's really similar as well. You can see counter press and counter with distributing it quickly, but most of the time I noticed that a lot of these instructions are too much for me, to be honest. Sometimes I like to take some of them off, and that is why I kind of created my own system for Atletico Madrid, where I didn't need to incorporate most of all these meta systems, and it sort of still works well. I noticed that that's how I came to confirm that the back three is really good this year. If you look at the out of possession instructions for them, high press, much higher defensive line, everything that you could think of in a meta tactic, it's in here, and you will get goals from it. But if you're a weaker team, you might struggle and be overly expansive, and then you go ahead and concede a lot of goals. So in order to combat that, especially with this system, I had to just find a way to find a balance and bring a lot of players into the role that are more solid, that could help us defend so that we don't get caught up on the counter attack and concede a lot of goals. Now with my Atletico Madrid save, I wanted to create a tactic that allowed my players to play with their player traits and express themselves and be free on the pitch. So what I went on to do was to create a system that allowed them to play in their player roles that they were familiar with, but also I tried not to force too many instructions that I knew were somewhat meta and kind of bring it into my tactic, because I knew that it's kind of good, it may clash with my players' ability to do what they know how to do best. So I came up with this system that is a narrow 5-2-2-1 system. I've been using this at for a while now with Atletico Madrid. Sometimes I change to have an attacking midfielder in the center and then have 2 strikers, one pressing forward on this other side, or the pressing forward, sorry, is going to be on the right hand side as a pressing forward on attack, and then I also have a false 9 in here playing on support DT. I used to just switch between this and having 2 attacking midfielders instead. It's very similar. We have a false 9 on the left hand side. He's going to drop into this space anyway, so it's kind of like the same tactic. So you can just have it in here, and what I did was to ask my wing back, instead of just being on automatic duty, he could just play on attack duty, and then I forced the wing back on the right hand side this time. He will now play on support duty, and I make sure that most of everything that is inside his player instruction is something that is not clashing with his player traits. So take more risks, yes, because I want him to try more killer balls like Trent Alexander-Arnold does for Liverpool, cross more often because he can cross from deeper areas, and of course tackle harder. In this defensive midfielder role here, I went for a deep line playmaker. I did have a problem with the regista because I know I love the regista, but the player that I had in particular role did not like the regista, so I just said let me try switching him to a deep line playmaker on support duty, and he was kind of fine with it, and it worked out that way. Segundo volante on attack duty, usually this guy is going to be on support duty. This is usually Moises Caicedo. If I just go ahead and switch this, you're going to see him in here. He has the ability to take more risk and dribble more, and of course close down a lot of players and tackle harder. So just these were the only instructions that were good enough for him, for me, to be honest. Nothing too much. My wing back here on attack duty could only tackle harder. He's a Korean player, a region, to be honest. Park Myung-jin. Very good on attacking, so I didn't really want him to do much except just tackle, to be honest. And crossing, dribbling, he has everything in spades, and he knocks the ball past the opponent. So just that freedom to do what he knows how to do best is all I did. Instead of going for ball playing defenders, all three, I went for one wide centre back on support and the other is a wide centre back on defend duty. Having the similar instruction to take more risk and then tackle harder. On this other side, I did add the take more risk instruction, but the ball playing defender on the center, you can see that he has the dribble more and tackle harder instruction. So just implementing those elements and allowing my team to be free. You can see it from the team instructions as well. There aren't that many team instructions. In fact, for in possession phase, all I had was play out of defense, basically. And then since we're attacking, we are Atletico Madrid, we're the stronger team. My player had the freedom to do whatever they wanted on the pitch, standard passing with slightly higher tempo. They will still play short when they want to. They will still go long when they want to. So I think it was just perfect. And of course, when you're in transition, we can counter and counter press. But this time, the goalkeeper is not distributing it too quickly. He's kind of calm on the ball. And sometimes taking short kicks may not even be necessary for me to turn it on. The goalkeeper is going to choose to do what he wants anyway. So if you look at the out of possession instruction, all I had was a high press and a much higher defensive line. Sometimes I would just play with the standard defensive line. Since we are Atletico Madrid, we're a top team. So to be honest, we could actually oppress teams and play on the front foot. Much more often trigger press was removed in this sense because I noticed that my players were pressing too much, having the ball, and then the opposition was always defending. We didn't really have time to break them down, so I noticed that dropping that press kind of helped us. So not going too meta, of course, and then stepping up more. Since I had this on the standard, we could still choose to step up more and try to compress the pitch and impose ourselves on the opposition. That having all those simple instructions just helped us play a lot better. And I get that it's a bigger team, and I feel the bigger you get in Football Manager, the less team instructions you're going to need, because most players, they sort of have their own player traits and they like to play in a certain way. So if you have that freedom, if you've come to that point in Football Manager, you can just allow your players to do what they know how to do and give them the freedom to do that within your particular system or tactic that you're creating. So this is how I was able to experiment with back three, and the coming of the back three was actually quite good this year. I used to struggle with this tactic a lot to try and get a very good back three system, but this year it's been quite good and I've enjoyed using back three a lot. So let me know what back three systems you've been able to work with. Are there any special tactics that you've done? And for more Football Manager tactics and Football Manager stories or guides like this, you can subscribe to the channel or check out more videos from the channel, and I'll see you in the next video.